most important issue for us is how we make sure that it's affordable to live in the city.
Mayor Adams, the same is true for New Yorkers.
Affordability is an issue that's impacting our city, and that's why we're doing best we can to put $30 billion back in the pockets of working class people.
President Trump, if you're watching this hearing, I respectfully ask, when will egg costs be high enough for you to issue one executive order on bird flu? $10 a carton, $15 a carton. It'll soon be cheaper to buy a magazine for an AK-47 than to buy breakfast. This is flat out wrong. Turn to my last topic. Interestingly, last night in a record-long address, the president did not mention the word Medicaid once, which is top of mind for everyone. Mayor Johnson, you don't dispute that 1.6 million people in Cook County are enrolled in Medicaid, right?
I do not dispute that. In fact, in most of our safety net hospitals, 70% of the individuals that are being serviced are being serviced through Medicaid.
I recently received outreach from Lurie Children's, a preeminent children's hospital located in Chicago. They said, quote, slashing Medicaid will put access to care for all children in our state at risk. You would agree that's unacceptable, right?
That is unacceptable.
It doesn't matter where you're from. If you're white, black, brown, poor, or rich, massive cuts to Medicaid will devastate our healthcare system. Thank you, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Chair now recognize Mr. Perry from Pennsylvania.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Mayors, thanks for being here, leaving your cities to come to Washington, D.C. today. By either definition or by claim, each of you, I think, could justifiably say represent what's considered a sanctuary city. If you could describe it, what would you, sanctuary from what? Anybody? Mayor Johnson, you want to start? Mayor Johnston?
Thank you, Congressman. I welcome that because I wanted to clarify. We do not shield people from federal law.
I just asked you what, so you don't consider yourself a sanctuary city?
We provide services and supports.
Do you consider yourself a sanctuary city? That's
we do not under that definition.
You don't use the definition, you're not a sanctuary.
We call ourselves a welcoming city.
Okay, so what are you welcoming and who are you not welcoming?
Well, we're welcoming everybody.
Okay.
We don't keep folks.
So you're welcoming criminals that you don't have any idea what their crime background is, and you're good with that?
No, we aggressively pursue.
How do you do that?
Anyway.
No. How do you vet the people that you welcome in your sanctuary city?
Sir, we don't vet folks that arrive from Illinois or California with a background check when they come into the Denver airport any more than someone from another location.
So you're welcoming any illegal immigrant or illegal alien to your city without question?
Well, folks that make the decision to come to Denver, they arrive, and then we expect.
But you call them, you welcome them, you welcome them. You call them to your city and say, if you come here, you will be safe from what?
Thank you, sir. We don't call anyone to our city. Folks that arrive in our city, we offer same access to services they may need to be successful. And if they break the law, we hold them accountable, we charge them, we prosecute them.
What about if they've already broken the law?
Well, if they've already broken the law and there is another jurisdiction that has a warrant for that person, they let us know and we would cooperate to transfer them to that jurisdiction.
I think we saw on Mr. Jordan's.
Child, this is so silly to me. This been watching this for about 20 minutes. This is just so silly. It's like somebody's parent trying to talk to them, and then the kid is just trying their best not to say something to piss the parent off. Get to the good stuff.
It's to your sanctuary city. So I'd ask you, sanctuary from what?
If you're referring to the number of individuals that were bused from Governor Abbott without any coordination, the 52,000 individuals that were seeking asylum, those individuals were bused to us. I passed a bus ordinance to work to coordinate with the governor of Texas. He refused to do that. But that transfer of individuals was the result of the governor of Texas, not the result of a welcoming city ordinance.
Welcoming city ordinance. So you're not welcoming these people that came here illegally?
The individuals that were bused to us from the border.
They were not welcome in Chicago? You didn't welcome them? You didn't provide them sanctuary?
So the welcoming city ordinance is pretty straightforward. It allows for our local law enforcement to focus on local policies, and that's why we're seeing a decline in violence.
So you don't care about federal law enforcement policies, only local policies.
We comply with all laws. What I do care about is this body, Washington, passing comprehensive immigration
So
reform.
let me ask you this. Chicago residents reported 28,443 violent crimes during 2024 alone, cases of aggravated assault rising to the highest level in 2 decades. Now, also, state funds, $160 million were issued to illegal alien job assistance shelters in Chicago. You're the mayor of Chicago.
Barely.
Do you think that your residents or the residents of your state should be paying for that more than they should be paying for their own needs, their own roads, their own public safety? I mean, who elected you? The people that came illegally, whether they were sent to you or not, or the people that reside in Chicago? Who elected you? And who do you serve?
The people of Chicago elected me as the 57th mayor of the city of Chicago, and we serve all the residents of the city of Chicago.
Illegal or not, criminal or not. How many of the 662,566 illegal aliens with criminal histories that ICE has reported are now residing in Chicago?
Someone will have to get back with you with that number. I don't keep account
Do you
of.
take immigration information from criminals as they're arrested and processed? Do you take immigration information?
Our local law enforcement focuses on getting
Do you
all
take,
violent
do you
individuals off the
determine
streets
whether
of
they're here
Chicago.
legally, what their immigration status is as a function of your justice
Gentlemen,
system?
time's expired, but please feel free to answer the question, Mayor.
Feel free to answer.
The Welcome in City ordinance ensures that
Answer.
our local residents communicate and trust local law enforcement to ensure that criminals and crime is being addressed.
So
And
you
that's
have
why
no
violent
idea how many
crime
are illegal.
has
Thank
gone
you,
down
Mr.
in the
Chairman.
city
I'll
of
yield.
Chicago. Thank you very much,
Chair now
Congressman.
Mr. Chairman, I have a
recognizes Mr.
unanimous
Khanna.
consent request.
Chair now
Mr.
recognizes.
Chairman, I have a unanimous consent request.
I'm sorry, Ms. Presley.
I have a unanimous consent request.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I'd like to seek unanimous consent to enter into the record. Mass deportations would deliver a catastrophic blow to the U.S. economy.
What?
This is
what
from the Joint
publication
Economic
is
Committee,
that?
December 2024.
From where?
Word.
What publication?
From word.
The Joint Economic Committee, December 2024.
Without objection, so ordered.
I'd like to seek unanimous consent to enter into the record from the American Immigration Council, October 2024. Mass deportation, devastating cost to America, its budget and economy.
Without objection, so ordered. Chair recognizes Mr. Khanna from California.
So because allegedly it's gonna mess with our economy, they should stay here, is what I hear her saying.
Her young child, Mayor.
Mr.
you
Chairman,
may be-
I got the note that the baby's okay for now, so I'll continue. But thank you. I will. I believe from my husband that the baby's okay, and
Okay, well,
and
just
the arrangement,
know.
if it's
All right,
okay, was
okay.
that everyone would take a break, so I wouldn't have to go into a back room by myself to nurse when it's
Okay.
time.
all right,
Thank you.
Chair recognizes Mr. Khanna.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I find the Republican position in this hearing quite ironic because the Republicans are the party that are always touting local government, state government, local control, and not having federal overreach. So I want to explore actually one of your favorite topics on the other side of the aisle, the infamous mask mandates. I know how much you love them. When CDC came out with the mask mandate order of January 29, 2021, they said that we needed to have fines of $1,500 for anyone who didn't wear a mask on a plane or in a public space. And they said that there needed to be referred criminally to the Transportation Authority if they violated it more than once. Now, Governor Abbott said in Executive Order 38, we're not going to enforce, we're not going to have our cities enforce the mask mandate. And Governor DeSantis said the same thing. We're not going to have our local police enforce the mandate. I want to ask Mayor Adams and Mayor Wu, because you had slightly different views on the mask mandate, but Mayor Adams, you were actually praised in New York for saying we are going to take away some of these mask mandates earlier so businesses can open and there can be a revival in New York. Did you ever, in law enforcement, to your knowledge, enforce the CDC mask mandate and ask your law enforcement to fine people who didn't wear a mask $1,500?
What we did was look at the science and looked at how it will impact business. And after issuing warnings in education,
But I think it's fair to say, Mayor, right? You never referred anyone to the transportation department for prosecution, and you never had local police out there saying we're going to fine people $1,500 with the CDC mandate.
the goal was to always ensure that people will carry out the procedure, and we did several education and warning in the process.
Mayor Wu, you were a great advocate of masks and looked at the science. Do you know if your city government actually ever used police resources to carry out the CDC or transportation department's mask mandate where they were fining $1,500 or referring for criminal prosecution?
I am not aware of any incidents of someone in Boston having been fined or prosecuted for any mask-related issues. We certainly prioritize public health and saving lives, and so our role as a city was to provide positive communication, outreach, make sure there were signs and different community organizations that could go and remind people to stay safe and do their best to take care of each other and their
And
families.
as much of an advocate as you were for masks, and I was an advocate for masks, would you have been hesitant to order your law enforcement, your local police, to say if someone was violating those mask mandates that we need to cooperate and turn them over to the transportation department for prosecution? Would that have given you some pause if the federal government were saying use your police departments to fine people $1,500 and give us their records for criminal prosecution?
Yes, it would have.
And so I guess I'm trying to understand, you know, if we set this precedent that we want cities to be enforcing every federal mandate, then what happens when there's a new Democratic president that comes and says, we want a mask mandate that the Republicans may not want? And when there are conservatives like Governor DeSantis or Governor Abbott saying we don't want our cities to enforce that? Do you see, Mayor Wu, any difference between a federal government asking you to enforce laws that ICE is doing versus a federal government asking you to enforce a mask mandate, or frankly, to enforce gun laws that may not be what your local city department is focused on?
It does seem that local authority is part of our democracy and part of our system of government.
Isn't the real issue here not one of immigration, but of federalism? Isn't the question, I mean, everyone agrees that there needs to be, if there's someone who's convicted of a crime, that ICE has the right to enforce those laws. The question is just, are you going to have local governments in this country be beholden to every new president's directives and an arm for enforcing that? My view is that we ought to have local governments be able to use their police officers for their priorities. That, in its essence, is federalism, and it actually used to be the conservative Republican position.
Gentlemen's time's expired. Chair recognizes Dr. Fox from North Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mayor Johnson, in the last 4 years, how much has Chicago spent on care for illegal aliens?
Thank you for that question, Congresswoman. So since 2022, since the governor of Texas began
Just
shipping.
tell me a number. I don't need a speech. Just tell me a number.
So since 2022, since the governor of Texas was shipping individuals to cities across this country, the city's budget, roughly 1% of the city's budget over the course of 4 years.
Mayor Johnston, the same question, and I don't need a speech, just a number.
Thank you, Dr. Congresswoman. Thank you, Congresswoman. It's 79 million over the last 2.5 years.
Mayor Adams, same question. How much has New York spent to care for illegal aliens?
Approximately $6.9 billion went out of our taxpayers' funds.
Mayor Wu, same question. How much has Boston spent to care for illegal aliens in the last 4 years?
We do not ask about immigration status and giving city services and providing that access, so we do not have a number.
Taxpayers been bearing the brunt of the massive wave of illegal aliens who've entered the United States. The Biden administration seemingly declared taxpayers and hardworking Americans collateral damage in the pursuit of open borders. Again, Mayor Johnson, are NGOs providing services to illegal aliens in Chicago?
In accordance with the Welcoming City Ordinance, our sister agencies or city departments, we do not seek the status of any individual that is seeking service.
Mayor Johnston, are NGOs providing services to illegal aliens in Denver?
Thank you, ma'am. When folks arrive on the streets without food or resources or shelter, we do provide food or shelter regardless of where folks arrive from.
Mayor Adams, same question.
Yes, in combination of city agencies and nonprofits, we responded to the migrant asylum seekers humanitarian crisis that hit our city.
And Mayor Wu, I assume you don't know their status, but do you know if there are NGOs are providing services to people arriving in your city without any kind of documentation?
There are community organizations, many of them in Boston, who seek to serve all of our Boston residents.
Congress must provide oversight and ensure accountability for taxpayer funds going to NGOs. Agents from Customs and Border Protection have been outspoken in opposition to allowing NGOs to assist illegal aliens in subversion of law and order. When asked if NGOs are working at cross purposes to the mission of Border Patrol agents, the chief of the National Border Patrol Council said, quote, "Most definitely, and they should not be allowed, but our government allows it," end quote. NGOs receiving taxpayer funding through grants pay for everything from food, shelter, and transportation to legal services that help the migrants traverse Mexico. That is why I introduced H.R. 245, the Grant Integrity and Border Security Act. This bill would require all NGOs who apply for a federal grant to certify as part of their application that they have not, will not, and are not engaging in acts that violate federal immigration law. If NGOs continue violating our immigration laws, then my bill would ensure that no federal funds can ever go to the violators. It's time to pass this bill, ensure accountability, and secure our cities and the border. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. Chair recognizes Ms. Brown from Ohio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Today, we've heard my colleagues on the other side of the aisle demean and dehumanize immigrants, choosing fear-mongering and political theater over real solutions. So let's take a moment to set the record straight. The best chance for comprehensive immigration reform came in 2013, when a bipartisan Senate majority passed a bill strengthening border security and providing a path to citizenship for longtime residents. But House Republicans killed it. Fast forward a decade later to last year, the Senate crafted another bipartisan deal, one that would have enhanced border security and tackled the fentanyl crisis with better technology and more agents. But Donald Trump torpedoed it, preferring anti-immigration rhetoric to real solutions. So this isn't about fixing the problem, it's about exploiting it. And let's not forget, the president wasn't complaining about this when he was employing undocumented immigrants at his resort. We all remember President Trump's tired old tactics from his first term, the harmful Muslim ban, referring to Black and brown countries as quote unquote shithole countries, and the cruel images of kids in cages. This time around is no different. President Trump signed multiple executive orders before even attempting to work with Congress. Mind you, a Republican controlled Congress. So this isn't about policy, it's about fear. For the last decade, Trump has pushed menacing messages portraying all immigrants as criminals. But it isn't just coming from Trump. It's being amplified by right-wing media. A recent Ipsos poll found that people who watch Fox News are twice as likely to believe myths about immigration, including the false idea that immigrants commit more crimes than native-born Americans. This is objectively false, yet 2 in 3 Fox viewers believe it is true. This serves a purpose: fueling outrage, distracting from real solutions, and keeping the conversation stuck in a cycle of fear instead of facts. And Trump's latest immigration crackdown reinforces these misperceptions. ICE raids, choreographed for cameras, deportation sweeps with photo ops, wardrobe changes, and tough talk. The cruel performative videos of immigrants in shackles, $200 million in taxpayer money to air pro-Trump propaganda ads. Talk about waste, fraud, and abuse. All spectacle, no substance, all performance, no plan. On the campaign trail, J.D. Vance and Donald Trump promoted vile and xenophobic lies about Haitian immigrants in my state of Ohio. And now the Trump administration has moved to strip protections from 500,000 Haitians. These are people who have lived, worked, and contributed to this country for years. And they came here the right way, the legal way. But instead of recognizing their contributions, we are forcing them back to a country plagued by violence, instability, and humanitarian crisis. All so Trump can claim 500,000 more deportations. The cruelty isn't just the point, it's their pleasure. So let's be honest about what's really going on here. Mayor Johnson of Chicago, what sort of an impact will the Trump administration's decision to allow arrests at sensitive locations like hospitals, preschools, churches, and courts have on your city?
Thank you for that question. As a welcoming city,
Oh, thank you for that question, because all that bullshit he can get with that, right?
strong, that's ultimately how we have built a safer city. Just this year alone, violent crime is down 20%. Any type of threat to the civility and to the humanity of people is a threat to the evolution of our democracy. And so it's incumbent upon Washington to ensure that we are funding our education system, that we are funding our transportation system, our healthcare system, creating more jobs. Just since I've been in office, we've increased youth employment, summer jobs by over 40%. Making sure that our young people see their purpose is the value of this democracy. And so I call on this body to continue to invest in the city of Chicago that sends billions of dollars to Washington.
Thank you. Fear and cruelty are not the solution. It's distinctly un-American and a dangerous distraction from the Congress's responsibility to actually deliver progress on this challenging facing our country. And with that, I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. Chair recognizes Mr. Groffman from Wisconsin.
Yeah, just a couple comments first. As far as the idea of who's committing crimes, we have no idea how many illegal immigrants in this country are committing crimes because nobody keeps track. Okay, if I go to a prison or a jail in Wisconsin with, I don't know, 1,500 inmates, and I ask how many of these people are here illegally or how many are citizens of another country, nobody will know the answer to that question. So that's why we don't have hard facts on how many crimes people committed. The other thing I like to point out is every year in this country, about 850,000 new people from other countries are sworn in as American citizens. I don't know of Donald Trump ever talking about reducing that number. Maybe he should reduce that number, but I've never heard him talk about reducing that number. Our concern here was illegal immigration, and I would hope the vast majority of Americans think we ought to have a immigration law that the 850,000 new citizens every year go through. But if we're going to have an immigration law, it means we have to do something with the people who try to become permanent residents without going through the proper structure. Now, I think part of our problem here is we have a lot of people who don't understand why we have an immigration law at all. And I want to ask all four of you as I go down, we go down the row here, do you believe the United States should have an immigration law, or do you believe that just anybody should be able to show up and come in? And we'll start with Mayor Adams there.
I strongly believe we need to have an immigration law. I strongly believe we need to secure our borders. We witnessed a 90% decrease, and we're seeing that play out in our city. So we should have a strong immigration law.
But, and I'll ask this question then. If you believe we should have an immigration law, and then we'll get all four of you here. If you believe that, do you believe people who ignore the law, whatever that law is, should be allowed in the country?
I think that all of us must be held accountable to the law, and if we secure our borders to make sure before they come in that is done correctly, it is not going to impact cities to carry that burden. Like I said, close to $7 billion in tax dollars.
Mr. Johnson, do you believe we ought to have an immigration law in this country, or do you believe everybody should just be able to walk in here and set up shop?
Thank you, sir. I do believe we should have an immigration law. I do believe we should have secure borders. I do believe we should fix our asylum process. I do believe we should let dreamers get access to permanent citizenship. I
Okay,
think
then the
there's lots
question
we could
is,
do.
if somebody ignores that law and comes in this country, do you believe the whoever, ICE or Border Patrol or anybody, should spin them around and send them out? Or can they just ignore the law, and because they, however, cross the Rio Grande, overstating a visa, whatever, are here? Do you believe that we ought to do something to the people who are ignoring the law?
Thank you, sir. In the case of the folks we're seeing, they are coming here because they are claiming asylum. When they claim asylum, they then have a right to a day in court to see if that asylum claim
Right.
is
The
valid.
question is, though, if I come in this country and stay here and I have not gone through any formal process to become a citizen or to be a visa, legal visa or whatever, should we kick that person out?
The folks that we're serving, sir, are trying very hard to navigate that legal process. It's often a 7-year wait for a court date when they arrive to this country. So part of it is the
Okay,
backlogged
me
administrative
tell
need
you
at the
this.
border.
Every month under President Biden, at least the statistics I have, 30 to 40,000 people, what are called gotaways, came across the southern border, didn't ask for asylum, didn't ask for anything. Do you believe that people who just come across that way should be escorted out of the country? Or do you believe just because they ran between the designated checkpoints that they, as the result, get to stay here forever?
Again, so we're serving folks who are seeking asylum or have status,
Well, of
like
course,
temporary protected status
wouldn't even know that.
or CBP-1.
Okay, next mayor, Mayor Johnson, buddy from Chicago.
Damn,
What do you
next mayor,
think? Should we have an
next
immigration law in
mayor.
this country, or should anybody who comes here just be able to stay here?
I do support the bipartisan legislation that was passed out of the Senate for comprehensive immigration
Well, no,
reform.
that's not answering the question. Right now, people are breaking the law. Do you believe the United States should have an immigration law? As far as I know, every country in the world has an immigration law. Maybe there's one outlier or something. Do you, and we have laws in the United States. Do you believe if people come here and break the law that they should be escorted out? Or do you believe they just get to stay here forever?
Our immigration system is broken. We have not had comprehensive
like
immigration reform since
Mayor
1986.
Wu,
May I answer fully?
Yeah, his time's expired, but
Okay.
feel free to answer. Do you want Mayor Wu to answer your question, or are you
yeah,
finished?
yeah.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Congressman. Yes, I do believe we need, cities everywhere clearly need an immigration law that has secure borders, comprehensive and consistent, compassionate pathways to residency and citizenship, resources to adjudicate the complexities of the law. And at the same time, I do not support mass deportation. That would be devastating for our economy. And there are millions of people who are running our small businesses, going to our schools.
Okay.
Thank you.
Get that.
Chair recognizes, and I must add, I don't think anyone's calling for mass deportation, but Chair recognizes Mr. Garcia from California.
Thank you. Well, thanks, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank all of our witnesses for being here today. Before I came to Congress, I was the mayor of Long Beach, California for 8 years. It's a diverse city of about 500,000 people. So I appreciate the work that mayors do. As mayor, I signed the Long Beach Values Act to protect all of our residents, including immigrants and undocumented residents. We set up justice funds to support people that were facing deportation, defending immigrants in court. These are policies that are strongly supported by my residents back home because they are good for all the community and make Long Beach safer. Now, we also know that immigrants make our communities vibrant and thriving places to live. The facts are that sanctuary jurisdictions or jurisdictions that welcome immigrants are overwhelmingly safer than non-sanctuary jurisdictions. That's actually a fact. Immigrants, both documented and undocumented, are also less likely to be incarcerated or to commit crimes than native-born people. We know this to be true. Again, these are facts, and mayors have every right to pursue the policies that you know are best for your residents. Now, the Trump administration has threatened to prosecute some of the mayors on the panel today and force them to comply with his extremist agenda. But however, Mayor Adams, you are in a different position. You, of course, are already facing serious criminal charges. And Mayor Adams, I assume that you are not going to commit perjury today. And I do believe, though, that you have an enormous amount of issues facing you ahead of you. And it means your criminal charges are absolutely relevant to us today. Bribery, wire fraud, willfully and knowingly conspiring to commit offenses against the United States. Mayor Adams, you, of course, deny these corruption charges against you. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes, Congressman.
Thank you. Now, I understand that you are proven innocent unless you are guilty, but you also have, sir, a trust problem. 4 of your deputy mayors have resigned. Now, this is serious, and Republican prosecutors agree that the evidence against you is ironclad, yet Trump's DOJ moved to drop these charges. Now, I just want to be and show this. I want to be just really clear and show this here. Now, look at how the Trump-appointed acting U.S. attorney who is prosecuting you described it. Because the law does not support a dismissal, and because I am confident that Adams committed the crimes with which he is charged, I cannot agree to seek a dismissal. Now, this is a conservative Republican who resigned when Donald Trump pressured her to drop the charges. And we know that the Trump administration demanded that the charges be dropped. And this is key. They will be able to refile them against you, Mr. Mayor, at any time. I think, personally, that's why you sat next to the architect of family separation on Fox and Friends. Now, Tom Homan sat next to you and said the following, and I quote, "Getting on Rikers Island is step one. We're working on some other things that we don't really want to talk about on open air because the city council will be putting roadblocks up on us. The mayor and me have a commitment to several other things." Now, this was you, of course, and Mr. Homan, the architect of family separation. This is also incredibly concerning, Mr. Mayor. You sat next to him, you smiled, you badmouthed your own city council. Now, Mr. Mayor, we have a right to know if the Trump administration has actually coerced you into agreeing to anything. And Mayor Adams, I also want to be very clear. Are you selling out New Yorkers to save yourself from prosecution?
There's no deal, no quid pro quo, and I did nothing wrong. And anything dealing with this case at a deference to Judge Ho, who's now addressing it, I'm going to refer to his actions.
Well, Mr. Mayor, it appears, to me at least, that you are selling New Yorkers out. It appears that you are working with Tom Homan, who is clearly focused on family separation and deportations and harming New Yorkers and others across the country. Now, every other...
Child, these people sound crazy, child. I feel like I said that. They just up here just to have a moment and to be running off at their damn mouth because they know a lot of people are watching this mess. You're working with Homan, so you're selling out New Yorkers. He's on the federal fucking level. What are we talking about right now? All this fighting for people who are here illegally. What the fuck?
In exchange for the dropping and dismissal of criminal charges in your indictment, to cooperate with the Trump administration on all fronts with respect to immigration. Did any such conversation take place?
I think I was extremely clear.
I cannot hear you, sir.
I think I was extremely clear. No quid pro quo, no agreement. I did nothing wrong but serve the people of New York City.
Thank you, my friend, for yielding.
Chair, now recognize Mr. Cloud from Texas.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, witnesses, for being here. You know, we are indeed a nation of immigrants. I have to look no further than my own children, who are the inheritance of both my ancestors who got here in the 1600s with William Penn, or my wife who got here when we got married. I think that's really what this nation is about. But you are not here today because of legal immigration. You are here because of illegal migrants who have been sent to our country. In your opening statements, there was a deft linguistic shell game that you played to try to conflate legal immigration with people who are coming here illegally. And we're savvy to that. You are here because each of you, with the exception of Mr. Adams, have said in some form or fashion that you will not honor ICE detainers. In other words, that when you have people in custody and ICE says, we need to come arrest that person because they're here illegally, that we will not honor that. That's why you're here. No one's asking you to go round up criminal aliens. We are asking you to take people who are already in your custody and hand them over to legal federal law enforcement. Now, what this does is it saves U.S. taxpayer money. It keeps from a greater presence of ICE and federal law enforcement in your communities, because if you're releasing them, it takes more people, as Chairman Jordan mentioned, to go in and to re-arrest that person, and it puts the lives of law enforcement in danger. This used to be a bipartisan issue. As a matter of fact, groups like the Cato Institute called President Obama the deporter in chief. And Mr. Chairman, I'd like to submit for the record a Cato article that said President Obama, deporter in chief, is the title of it. So why we have to ask is suddenly the left not embracing policies that Obama supported.
Good question.
We can look to last night, where it seems to be Trump derangement syndrome, where the left could not seem to applaud kids fighting cancer, a first lady, an accomplished immigrant in her own rights, where traditionally we have applauded and recognized and honored the families for their sacrifice. Many of them are, this is the president's issue, and they're kind of along for the ride. It was odd, I thought, that they applauded sending more money to the Ukraine, but not peace for Ukraine. So it brings us back to why we're here and why this is a partisan issue all of a sudden. It boggles the mind. Now, Mayor Johnson, you seem to want to talk about Texas. So I'm from Texas. Let's talk about Texas. First of all, have you been to the southern border?
Cloud, let's go.
I've been to Texas, but I have not been exactly to the southern border.
Okay. You seem to talk about Governor Abbott and sending buses to your city. Now, I can understand the concern with that, but I will also let you know that Texas did not ask for the Biden administration to open the borders and send an exponential amount of people that have affected your city into our state. And you should know that no one forced them to go to your city. The reason they selected your city is because you have said it's a sanctuary city. Everyone was asked where they wanted to go before they got on the bus. No one asked them to get on the, or told them, forced them to get on the bus. They did it of their own free will, and they were sent to your city because of your stated claim to be a sanctuary city. Now, one thing I could tell you, having toured the facilities, is that I've been to those facilities under the Biden administration where there was a map on the wall, and you could see the migrants kind of pointing out which city they wanted to go to. And I can also tell you, from having been through the immigration process with my wife, there's a difference between people coming here legally and then people who are, when I've been at the ceremony where the people are crying with tears as they take the oath of citizenship to come to this country, is far different than people coming across our border, waving the flags, not trying to assimilate into the United States culture, and sometimes bringing crime into our communities. This is an issue. Now, each mayor, I want to ask you, one of the issues recently is how much FEMA dollars have gone to support migrants and hotel rooms in your communities. Mayor Adams, do you know how many FEMA dollars have spent in your city?
$80 million, and I've been to the border and I saw those maps pointing to New York.
Thank you. Mayor Johnston?
Thank you, Congressman. I know we do have some federal dollars that I have to get back to in the exact amount.
It's roughly 32 million, Mayor, 38 million, Mayor Johnson?
I don't have the exact numbers.
It's 32 million.
I don't have the number. I'd love to know.
29 million. So understandably, citizens are concerned about that, their taxpayer dollars that are supposed to be going to disaster relief for them and their communities going to illegal aliens. Do you agree, each of you, yes or no question, I only have a couple seconds. Do you recognize that it is against the law to harbor criminal aliens?
Gentlemen, time's expired, but please answer the question, Mayor Adams.
Yes, reading federal law, correct.
I do recognize that, and we do not do that.
The city of Chicago does not harbor criminals.
Yes, we follow the laws.
Mr. Chairman, I have a unanimous consent request.
Proceed.
I would ask to enter into the record 2 articles. One, talking about President Trump putting mass deportations to the heart of his campaign during the campaign. And just last night, Trump vows to use U.S. military for mass deportations.
Without objection, so ordered.
Thank the chair.
Chair recognizes Mr. Frost from Florida.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the year is 1969. My abuela, Zenaida, my grandma, Yaya, gets a call. And her, my mother, Maritza, my aunt, Sandra, and my grandpa, Pepe, have to go to a plane within 24 hours because they've been approved to come to the United States. They came here as refugees in 1969 during the freedom flights from Cuba for their new life in accordance with the promise of this nation. ICE arrested hundreds of U.S. citizens during Trump's first term. Again, in the last few weeks, ICE has detained Native Americans, a teenage girl from Nicaragua, Puerto Ricans, a Puerto Rican military veteran, all legal residents, but all who fit the description. I bet someone like my grandma would have fit the description too. Maybe even myself. Trump's border czar went on TV and raged about Americans studying up on their constitutional rights during interactions with ICE agents. It was one of the most despicable things I've seen. And the question is, why is he so upset that people know their constitutional rights? To the point where this administration has moved to try to intimidate members of Congress for trying to educate their constituents to know their rights. Why don't they want people to know their rights? Well, because if we know what our rights are, we'll also know when Trump tries to take them away. Mr. Beer, why are such outbursts from this administration alarming as threats to our rights and liberties?
Well, you think about what we've heard about detainer requests. I have documented over 155 U.S. citizens who've been targeted by detainer requests, and they want to say we're going to just take the discretion away from state and local governments over detainer requests, even in the case where someone is clearly a U.S. citizen. Here's my birth certificate. Doesn't matter. They're going to disregard it. And so, yes, I am well aware of the threat this administration poses to constitutional rights.
So from what we see the last few weeks, should American citizens, should people with legal permanent residence in this country be also scared of this mass deportation campaign for themselves and their own children?
Oh, absolutely. The birthright citizenship order is the most egregious, but that doesn't stop there. They want to take away people's citizenship and people's rights, regardless whether they're citizens or not.
Thank you. Mayor Wu, Boston has been named the 9th best city for quality of life in the entire country. Congratulations.
I would argue with that.
Okay. If Trump succeeds in forcing you to redirect your city's budget and personnel to help with ICE raids in this mass deportation campaign, how would that affect quality of life for your people?
First, that is against the laws in Boston and in Massachusetts. But I've heard from so many community members, including residents who are immigrants who are citizens, that they are terrified. And that means when people don't feel comfortable reaching out to call 911 when they need help, when survivors of domestic violence don't feel comfortable reporting or giving information, it makes all of us less safe, even those who aren't immigrants.
This culture of fear is bad for the safety of our people. Donald Trump's immigration raids are also traumatizing and destabilizing, of course, all Americans, but especially children and kids. Being a kid in America is hard enough. Making good grades, going through more school shooter drills and fire drills. And now Trump wants to send armed ICE agents into their classrooms to rip children from the school desk as they're trying to learn. Mayor Johnston, my colleagues are laughing about that. I don't find that funny. What would a school day be like for a kid in your city when ICE suddenly bangs down on the door and abruptly grabs their teacher or one of their friends?
Thank you, sir. I was a teacher and I was a school principal before I did this job. So I knew that our school was often the safest place that kids came, and they knew there they could learn, they could get support, they get access to services. And many of our kids come from mixed status families. They don't know their status. They don't know their mom's status or their dad's status. So I've had families before who have pulled their kids out of school, kids who were citizens, because they were worried that somehow their kids were in danger because they didn't know who was being taken. And so for us, the fastest way to make a city unsafe is to have kids not feel safe in their own schools.
See, they want everybody to live in fear of undocumented people. That is what they want to do. But I'll tell you, when I'm in my district and I do roundtables, I've done them with kids in elementary school, and I ask them what they want us to do. They want us to ban assault weapons. They say what they're actually scared of is being shot to death and dying in their schools. And because of actions that the Democratic administration took, the Biden administration with Congress, gun violence has gone down in Denver, 24%, 25% in Chicago, 40% down homicides in Boston. This works. Gun violence went up 45% under Trump. So when they're in charge, more people die. When they're in charge, we are actually less safe. And I think that's an important thing that we all have to keep in mind as they try to scare us in terms of immigrants who are living in this country. Thank you, and I yield back.
Chair recognizes Mr. Palmer from Alabama.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thank the witnesses for being here. I just want to respond about crimes committed by people here illegally. Every crime committed by someone in the United States illegally is a crime that would not have been committed. Lincoln Riley, Ruby Garcia, Rachel Morin, Joycelyn Nungaray, the woman set on fire in the New York subway. These are all assaults, rapes, murders, and other crimes that would not have taken the lives of these people if those people were not here illegally. They were given safe harbor. Now, I want to ask you something. You all took an oath of office. Mr. Adams, did you swear to uphold the Constitution of the United States?
Yes, I do.
How about you, Mayor Johnson?
Yes, sir, I did.
How about you, the other Mayor Johnson?
Yeah, the Constitution of the United States as well as the Constitution of Illinois.
Okay, and Mayor,
Yes.
you did. Are you familiar with the Supremacy Clause? Any of you?
Yes, sir, I am.
Okay. Then under the Supremacy Clause, you understand that the laws of the United States take precedent over the laws of Colorado, over the laws of Illinois, over the laws of Massachusetts, and your cities. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir, I do.
But when you declared your cities sanctuary cities, you did so illegally. Do you understand that?
Respectfully, sir, I would disagree with that. We follow
You're
every
disagreeing
federal
with the
law.
law. It's against the law to give sanctuary to people who have committed felonies, and it's a felony to cross the border legally. You
There's no-
gave sanctuary to people who are here illegally. You violated your oath to uphold the Constitution because of the Supremacy Clause. The laws of the United States take preference. But you didn't do that.
There is, thank you, sir. There's no part of our city law that violates federal law, no part of the practices or services we provided that
Did
violate
you
federal law.
personally did you personally violate the law then by giving sanctuary? Somebody gave these people sanctuary. You declared your city, city of Boston was declared a sanctuary city by you, Mayor.
Being a sanctuary city as you describe it, or being a city as we describe it, that's home for everyone, does not, it means that if
When
you
you
commit a
give
crime,
safe
you are
harbor
held
to
accountable
people who are
regardless of
here
immigration
illegally,
status.
and when you interfere with the officers of the law who are there to even remove people that you know have committed crimes, you have violated your oath of office. You've committed a crime. Mr. Chairman, I don't understand why we haven't been discussing obstruction of justice. I mean, get real about this. We have a problem in the country with the people who've come here illegally. And I just gave you a few names of people who have been raped and murdered. There are numerous others. There's a whole organization established called Remembrance to remember the people who have been assaulted, raped, murdered in this country, because certain cities, certain officials decided to give sanctuary to people who came here illegally and committed these crimes. It goes all the way back to Kate Steinle, San Francisco, shot by someone who was here illegally. She would still be alive today. She died in the arms of her father. So I want to know if you understand the Supremacy Clause, that the laws of the United States are supreme over whatever your opinions might be of what the laws are.
Sir, I do recognize that. We do follow that. I want to clarify that we actively, aggressively pursue any known criminal in the city, and we actually partner with the federal government to do that. If there is someone with a criminal warrant, we're searching for them. We have federal task forces we're partners of to break up gang activity. We do that for drug trafficking. We do that on armed robberies. So we are in partnership with the federal government on many issues around.
Mayor Adams is being attacked because he's agreed to cooperate with federal officials to uphold the laws of the United States. I haven't heard any of you in defense of that.
We are absolutely upholding the laws of the United States. We do it every day, and we will continue to do it.
I just think we need to do a deeper dive into this, Mr. Chairman. If it were up to me, I mean, I'd be considering referring charges. I think we've got a problem here when we decide that there's some laws that we will obey and some laws that we won't. I don't care who it is, Republican, Democrat, I don't care what office you hold. We need to abide by the laws passed by.
Will the
United
gentleman
States.
yield?
No, I will not yield. Mr. Chairman, I thank you for the time. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back.
Well,
We're gonna have two more. We're gonna have two more questioners. Then we're gonna have to take a break at the request of the witnesses, a 15-minute break, maybe 20 if we need that. But Chair recognizes Mr. Kassar, and after him, then Mr. Higgins, and we'll proceed with the break. But Chair recognizes Mr. Kassar.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Mayor Wu, can you tell us a little bit, just maybe 20 seconds, about how your administration has helped address unemployment, especially amongst youth in your city, which we know is a risk when we have high levels of young people unemployed?
We made a commitment, our mayor's guarantee, that any young person in the Boston Public Schools who wanted a paid summer job would get one. And we fulfilled that with the partnership of businesses and companies and organizations throughout the city. Record numbers participating.
Thank you, Mayor Wu. Mayor Johnson, can you tell us a little bit about measures your office has implemented to address the root causes of violence in Chicago?
Thank you for that question. Yes. So first of all, it's great to report that violence is down in the city of Chicago, and it has gone down since I've been in office as a result of a couple of measures. One, we've reopened 3 mental health clinics because we do know that mental health issues, and we are in a very severe mental health crisis. We've also increased the number of youth employment. We have hired almost 28,000 young people for last summer. This year, we have an opportunity to hire up to 29,000 young people. We've also built more homes. Just last year, we've appropriated $11 billion, 37,000 construction jobs in the works for almost 10,000 more affordable units. And we have promoted and hired 200 detectives to increase trust between community and law enforcement to solve the crimes that do occur in our city.
Thank you so much. Mayors, I want to thank you for the hard work you're doing every single day. Just in 40 seconds, you have described building tens of thousands of homes for people that need them, hiring detectives to solve cold cases, building community trust to reduce violence, hiring people to do incredible mental health work, and reducing the youth unemployment rate. That is so much more than what the Republican majority can ever describe having ideas about. And that's why they've dragged you before us today. They want to point the finger at you because they have no plan on how to address housing, no plan on how to reduce costs, no plan on how to actually reduce violence in our communities. In fact, maybe some of the only plans they have would be to make those issues worse. And I know that you all as mayors are doing one of the hardest jobs in this country every single day. You're serving your communities honorably. And they don't want the American people to hear about how Boston has drastically dropped your unemployment rate. They don't want the American people to hear about how Chicago is dropping the rate of violence in the city. But our job is to make sure the American people actually hear the truth. And the truth is that you are pairing a law enforcement response along with a mental health response and a housing response and a jobs response to what's going on in your cities. And that is so critical. Republicans, on the other hand, here are going back to the same old tactic, which is to say, find a vulnerable group of people and let's blame them for everything that we can. Anything bad that happens, let's go try to point the finger at our political opponents or at a vulnerable person or at a person of color from a faraway place. And that doesn't actually solve real issues for the American people. Republicans and their big boss donors blame immigrants for low wages because they don't want the American people to see the Republican plan to dismantle the NLRB, to dismantle unions, and to never pass a bill raising wages for American workers. They blame immigrants for housing costs because the Republicans are dismantling the Department of Housing and Urban Development and stripping affordable housing funding from this country. They want to distract from the $8 million a day that people like Elon Musk get in federal contracts while they attack hardworking immigrants and while they attack officials that are actually just trying to do their jobs. Mayor Johnson, you have a limited number, I suppose, of jail cells in Cook County and a limited number of law enforcement resources. Is that correct?
That is correct, and I do not have jurisdiction over Cook County jails.
And you want to make sure that when somebody in the city of Chicago calls 911, that they get an appropriate response. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And so what I have been hearing all morning from my Republican colleagues is they want the federal government to go tell the city of Denver or the city of Boston or the city of Chicago. No, they want the federal government to be able to call you and take over your police resources or take over your county's jail resources, and you don't even represent the county, for whatever case they might come up with, the person's dangerous or not. Instead of having cities determine if somebody is dangerous and needs to be held, instead of having cities say, we want to make sure if you have an emergency that we get somebody to you and don't just send out our police to a call that may not be a priority just because somebody in the federal government wants to go after somebody with no criminal background and that isn't a threat. And so with that, Mr. Chairman, right before I yield back, I just want to thank people that are involved in local government, city council members, neighborhood associations, mayors, the people who keep our cities running. You deserve our support in making your cities more safe. You deserve our support.
Gentlemen,
in
time's
addressing
expired.
housing
Chair recognizes
instead of
Mr.
hearings like
Higgins
this.
from
I yield
Louisiana.
back.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let's clarify for America. Mayor Adams, Mayor Johnson, Mayor Johnson, and Mayor Wu, are you here today under the advice of council, and do you have council present? Yes or no?
I want to understand the question. Are
you here today under the advice of council, and do you have council present?
do have council present. I'm here because we were requested to appear.
Did you consult with, did you have counsel prior to your appearance?
Yes, we did.
Thank you. This is not a trap question. We just want to clarify.
Okay.
Here under the advice of council, do you have council present?
Yes, sir.
Mayor
Council present here because I was invited.
Did you counsel before your trip here?
We do have counsel.
Get
but I was
advice
here.
from your counsel?
Yes.
Okay, then you're under the advice of council.
Yes.
Mayor Wu, thank you. So just clarify for America, these mayors are all sanctuary city mayors. But the narrative is no longer comfortable because 3 months ago, we were at the tail end of 4 years of millions and millions of illegals coming into our country. It was out of control. The only thing that has happened since then is we had an election in November. And now we're not pulling the curtain back. We have ripped the curtain from the rods. We have revealed to America just how fast we could have secured our border if you had an executive that was willing to enforce the law. So now we're paying attention to our municipalities. And every one of them is lawyered up. They've changed their narrative. We got example after example. The mayor of Chicago, we must lead with and live by the promise of sanctuary city. The mayor of Denver, willing to go to jail in defense of sanctuary city policy. The list goes on. But the policies of these mayors and our previous president have consequences, real life consequences. I have a family here today, Mr. Chairman, who lost their beautiful loved one. This young man was killed by an illegal immigrant in Texas that never should have been in our country. He'll never be here to raise his daughter, Anne Marie, to love and cherish and honor and uphold his beautiful wife, Olivia. And you mayors have responsibility, not just to your communities and the citizens you just want to serve, but by extension to the entire republic. And let me clarify, I was a cop for a long time. To honor the jurisdictional authority of another law enforcement agency, you do it every day in your city. Guaranteed, every one of you, if you have an inmate in your city on city charges, and that inmate has a felony warrant from a neighboring county or another county in your state, and that county contacts your city while you have that inmate in detention, and ask you to hold them for them to come pick it up upon release, guaranteed you release that inmate to the county over or to your state police. But you're not doing it for ICE. And ICE is responsible to remove millions of criminal, hard-edged criminal illegals from our country. And we've had enough. America's fed up with this betrayal of oath, and you'll be held accountable. One of you said you're willing to go to jail. We might give you that opportunity. Good mayor. One of my colleagues mentioned the children. I always want to talk to the children, separation of children. At any given time in America, there's 750 to 850,000 American citizen parents of minor children incarcerated in our country. If you commit a felony in America, you get arrested and prosecuted and convicted and incarcerated, you can expect to be separated from your children. But let me say, there's a sunset to that separation, because when you do your time, you'll be released. You can return to your family. This young man will never return to his family, and he should have never been removed from his family. If we had a president and heads of our municipalities that were willing to uphold the federal law that exists. America is moving into a new era of enforcement of our own laws. Welcome to it. Mr. Chairman, I yield.
Very good.
Mr. Chair, I have unanimous consent.
All right.
This is an article from Wired. It is February 18th of 2025. U.S. funding cuts are helping criminals get away with child abuse and human trafficking. Services supporting victims of online child exploitation.
Without
and
objection, so
trafficking.
ordered.
Thank you so much.
At the request of the witnesses, the committee will take a 20-minute break pursuant to the previous order. The chair declares the committee in recess for 20 minutes.
Good, Charles. Y'all's getting on my nerves. I can't sit here and watch that all day, but that is what's going on as far as the mayors are concerned, child. We're going to talk about Michelle Wu. Is she related to Chantal? We'll see. About her taking up for fucking criminals as opposed to the law-abiding citizens that pay the damn taxes and shit. But that's going to be in about 30 minutes, y'all. All right. I saw this mess. So I said, all right, let's take a look at what's going on. Bullshit. All right. Anyway. 30 minutes, y'all. I'll be back at 1 o'clock and we're going to start talking about these women, ladies' night, and what's going on with Kendra G dragging that ass all the way from the east to the left coast, like me. All right. Because I didn't had enough. Yeah, Jasmine always out here running off at the mouth, all loud and obnoxious. Don't tell me what I want. I don't need you to be telling me nothing. The half of these people just out here talking to talk. They just out here talking to talk. Not even just with that situation we just was watching, but period. Everybody just want to be seen everything. You know what I mean? Y'all already know. You already know. All right. 30 minutes, 29 minutes, y'all. Come back. We're going to be doing this dragging of Kendra because Corey had to talk about it. Then we got to talk about this interview with the dude that was allegedly raped. All right. So I see you all in 29 minutes.